So the title of my presentation this morning is Building Critical Raw Material Supply Chains in Europe. I draw investors' attention to our disclaimer. So the company overview, as you've heard, we have a portfolio of critical raw materials projects all located in the EU. We're Canadian listed, so we're listed in Toronto, but we also have a listing in Stockholm and significant Swedish shareholding. All our assets are located in the EU. We have a built and permitted graphite mine called Woxna Graphite in Sweden, and we also have a 100% owned heavy rare earth project called Norra Kärr. We also have a polymetallic exploration program with a Romanian partner in which we own 51%. It's a highly experienced leadership team, significant mining and capital markets experience, and we have insider shareholdings approximating about 40% of the company. So looking at the portfolio in a little more detail, and I'm going to focus this presentation on Norra Kärr particularly. Norra Kärr, which is our heavy rare earth elements project, is Europe's most advanced heavy rare earth elements project. Heavy rare earth elements have been getting a lot of attention recently, specifically dysprosium and terbium as two of the key heavy rare earths that go into permanent magnets. We have had an interesting couple of weeks. Last week we got the endorsement of the county administrative boards for our application for a mining lease bearbetningskoncession. And so the next step is to wait for the mining inspectorate's decision. There's 16 years of technical work done on Norra Kärr, so even though it has a long history, we've actually got a good foundation for being able to move forward. And in addition to waiting for the mining lease decision, we're working on pre-feasibility study work streams, and we're looking to complete those by the middle of next year. The economics for Norra Kärr have been done on a number of different occasions. The last technical study was done in 2021, so we have a strong economic case. And also when we talk about heavy rare earth elements particularly, they're a strategic interest to the European Union because of their use in manufacturing permanent magnets, both for the energy transition, but also over the last few years of greater importance or equal importance, defense applications. I also mentioned that we have Woxna Graphite, in which we own 100% interest. Woxna has been kept on care and maintenance by the company over a number of years. We have a processing plant that's capable of producing 10,000 tons a year of 94% flake graphite concentrate. And we have the opportunity to increase that to 15,000 tons. So the work that's been ongoing this year, we put out an announcement in Q1. We've been doing different types of test work to prove the quality of the concentrates that we can produce, to come up with a base case, which will provide the foundation for doing a new business plan to support the possible restart of production. What we see in the last few weeks in Sweden specifically, and we had comments from the government earlier this year, Ebba Busch saying Sweden has enough graphite to support its own needs. We've seen the mining inspectorate also grant exploitation concessions for new graphite development. So there's quite a lot happening in Sweden in terms of graphite, and we're trying to play into that interest. And really the starting point for this work was getting inbound inquiries earlier in the year from downstream customers that wanted to know, could we supply them with flake graphite concentrate? So we're quite excited about the opportunities for Woxna going forward. And again, graphite is a critical raw material as far as the EU is concerned. And then finally, with Bihor Sud, our exploration alliance in Romania. Geologically, this is a fascinating area. We have access to underground development, a former uranium mining area with significant access to tens of kilometers of underground development. This puts us in the guts of what we hope is potential mineralization. And we have had teams there this year doing significant work. And we also got a new set of permissions for a former uranium mine, Avram Yanku, in the summer. When we got that, what we decided to do was reevaluate the whole exploration license. And so we've been working on a competent persons report, which is near completion. And that's really giving us the foundation both to understand what the priorities should be for us as a company, but also to attract alternative financing sources to go directly into Romania. So I just want to remind people about the importance of critical raw materials because it's sometimes forgotten. Rare earths are getting all the headlines, and they're getting all the headlines because China dominates the supply chain. And and specifically this graphic on the left-hand side of the slide shows this to you. And then the analysis that's been done over recent years is not just about the critical raw materials for the energy transition and taking carbon out of our daily lives, but also around the applications that critical raw materials, both graphite and rare earths, are used when it comes to defense applications. With Norra Kärr specifically, which I'll come on to now, because that's the main focus of mine at the moment. It's been known about since the early 1900s and was given national interest by the SKU in 2011 as part of the conversation in terms of reducing Europe's dependency on countries outside of Europe for and specifically China for rare earths and products manufactured from rare earths. It's been part of the conversation since 2014. So, ironically, with all you can see the Reuters article from a few weeks ago at the bottom of the slide there. Ironically, with the crisis in rare earths, this has been known about for more than a decade, and Norra Kärr has been seen as one of Europe's opportunities to reduce this dependency on China and give it the regional and create regional autonomy. What makes Norra Kärr unique is clearly its location within Europe, but also the composition of the rare earths is predominantly dominated by heavies, and again, that's dysprosium and terbium. So when China introduced export restrictions in April, that spiked prices in dysprosium and terbium. The supply chain was scrambling around to try and find these raw materials to do its manufacturing processes. And what we have is a continued uncertainty in supply chains around CRMs, and this is what makes Norra Kärr so interesting at this time. Our focus has been very much on the green rectangle at the top of the slide there. This is what's happening at site. It's just basically a glorified quarry. It's extraction and it's mineral processing. This is not really complex industrial processes. It's very straightforward. It's no use of chemicals on site for the processing. And so this is what I think has given the confidence to the two county administrative boards who have endorsed our application for a mining lease, a bearbetningskoncession. That rectangle is a 26-year mine life. It's going to produce roughly around 5,341 tonnes per annum. That's our estimate of total rare earth oxides, of which over 1,000 tonnes is the magnetic rare earth oxides. And the kind of production levels of dysprosium and terbium oxides that we're talking about, these, to give you some understanding of the significance, these are similar numbers to what Lynas Rare Earths has put out in October with regards to the nameplate capacity of their expansion, their Malaysian facility. They said 250 tonnes of dysprosium oxide and 50 tonnes of terbium oxide. So this is what makes Norra Kärr specifically relevant to solving Europe's problem of a healthy over-dependency on China. And then in addition to that, we have the opportunity to produce industrial minerals, specifically nepheline syenite. And we've been spending quite a lot of work, doing quite a lot of work this year on understanding those markets and the other opportunities. And then finally, once we've got the mining lease for Norra Kärr, we will be thinking about in the new year what we termed as a rapid development plan earlier in Q1 when I put out an announcement about the work streams that were being undertaken. And really, we're thinking about, given the crisis in rare earths and given the dynamics in the global situation, geopolitics and what have you, how we can accelerate the work that we're doing on hydrometallurgy to build our downstream operation, because there was no point thinking about the downstream until we had the mining lease, because without the quarry, you can't produce any material. So this is what we're looking at doing. How do we accelerate timeframes? What can we do in the shortest possible timeframe? Again, just coming back to the economics, these were done in 2021 as part of the scoping study. There was a pre-feasibility study in 2015. What the scoping study did is it brought in the industrial minerals into the revenue line, which has the added benefit of boosting value. And these numbers will be updated when we do the pre-feasibility study and complete that by the middle of next year. So finally, in summary, really with Norra Kärr and specifically the last 2 weeks, it's very much about building momentum. We await the decision from the Mining Inspectorate. We've got the pre-feasibility work streams working through to completion by the middle of next year. We've got the commercial potential of the industrial minerals as well as the strategic need for the heavy rare earths. And we've got the opportunity, which we're considering of reapplying for under the second call for EU strategic project status. With Woxna graphite, as I touched on, Sweden is focusing its attention on its graphite resources, and we've seen that with new exploitations granted. We have a built and permitted mine, so we are looking at the restart potential of that. And then finally with Romania, we have a plan for completing the competent persons report and using that as the basis to attract new capital into Romania specifically and push that project forward as well. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Kurt, for that presentation. So your share price is up over 130% this year. How do you plan to keep this momentum up in 2026?
I think the major de-risking event is getting the Bearbäcknings concession, the mining lease.
Yep.
That is the pivotal moment where you get security over your asset. I was at Sveamin's Exploration Day, and this is what most people were talking about. What would attract more investment into Sweden? It's the certainty that if you do the work.
So what time frame is that happening in?
I've been caught out before in my time in working in Sweden with regards to being specific around time frames. It's not something that's in our control. It's in the control of Bergstaten.
Yes.
So if you were to ask me and put me on the spot, I say near future.
Yeah, but it's 2026 anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would hope, as I think I put on the slide, early 2026.
Yeah. Great. So, I mean, you also mentioned critical raw materials. It's something, of course, that's been in focus lately because of the trade wars and what's going on with China. Do you want to give us an update on, how the current state of geopolitics affect your company?
Yeah, I think what we had in October was some news around the US administration trying to take a stake in a Greenland project, critical metals. This put fuel into all rare earth stocks. I think it threw a spotlight on rare earths specifically. And even before that, in April and then again in October, we have China effectively introducing export restrictions and turning off the tap for rare earth supply. This is all playing out and it's affecting the downstream and people that rely on these inputs into their manufacturing processes. So in addition to that, what we've seen from the US administration is direct investment into rare earth projects. Right. And we already saw this in Australia, but clearly Donald Trump is trying to buy up all real estate in terms of rare earths. And specific to MP materials.
And of course causing higher valuations in those companies as well.
Yeah, I mean, and also clearly the way China built its rare earth capability was through a state-sponsored industrial strategy to dominate. They've done that successfully. Yeah. The only way that the US can compete with that is to do something similar. So they put $400 million in terms of equity investment in MP materials, and then they go and the US Department of War does a $150 million loan. Those two financings then give JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs the confidence to put in $1 billion of debt. So this is your public participation, which stimulates the private capital markets.
And will that trickle down to companies such as yours?
I think when you get the mining lease and the conversation that's taking place in Europe, and clearly Europe has, the prospect for Europe is it will be squeezed by China and the US, and this is forcing greater action. And I've been in Brussels 4 times this year. To some degree, the conversation hasn't changed, but what is now taking place, and specifically 3rd of December, the RE Source EU plan. This is the framework that basically pulls together all the elements of activity taking place in the EU with regards to critical raw materials. And through that framework, following on from, say, strategic project status and some of these aspects, we have the opportunity for that funding to trickle down to us.
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting perspective then, because it means that kind of similar to defense spending, where in the past, you've relied on the US for that. Now Europe also needs to boost its own capability in mining and rare earth materials and not be so reliant on China or in other places, right?
Yeah, and what we've seen, I think Q1 this year, the European Commission put out a white paper on stockpiling. That was discussing stockpiling in military equipment and armaments, but also in critical raw materials. Right. That conversation
because it's a very critical part of building defense capabilities.
And that conversation has now developed further, where what I heard, and I've not seen the specific black and white on this, but potentially defense budgets being used to build capability in supply chains.
Course,
so you now have a because one of the things I said on an interview a week ago was, depending on how the global alliances fall out, and who knows how long global alliances stay in place these days, they're very fluid.
Right.
But can you rely on nations outside of Europe necessarily to provide the critical raw materials that you need to manufacture military and equipment and armaments? And I was in Finland recently and was listening to the conversation taking place there, clearly around the biggest deterrent to an increased level of conflict is to have a military capability. And in order to have that, you need an industrial capability to do the manufacturing, and to feed the industrial machine, you need the critical raw materials.
Right. And for smart investors, then of course they would want to be in tune with mega trends and also get exposure from both perhaps the defense sector, but also critical raw materials and mining companies, seeing where all this is heading. Great presentation. Thank you so much.